Do you remember taxis? I remember taxis. You used to like wave them down, you'd get in, they were yellow, and they would take you from like point A to point B. Thanks to Uber, there is a whole generation of people who no longer think about taxis when they think about ride sharing, or they think about getting from point A to point B in the city. They think about Uber. And if you're watching this video, it's probably because you're interested at being employed in Uber. In today's video, I'm gonna teach you how to land a job with Uber. I'm gonna give you actual Uber job interview questions and answers. I'm gonna talk about Uber's value and position you to go in and absolutely crush your interview with Uber and get a job. Let's go. Now, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to talk about values. I think it's really important to talk about values when you're interviewing with a company because it often works its way into some of the questions they ask you, and you can weave those values into the questions that they are going to ask you to show that you are well-researched and a good value alignment. Now, I'm going to go through their values here. They call them their new cultural norms. That's how they describe them at Uber. But I'm also going to link it right down here. Go to this web address and read them, because in addition to what I'm about to share with you, they have definitions for all of them, and there's a lot of value in knowing them. But I'm going to go through them real quick. So the first one, we live globally, we live locally. We are customer obsessed. We celebrate differences. We do the right thing. We act like owners. We persevere. We value ideas over hierarchy. We make big, bold bets. So those are their new cultural norms. Now, again, go to that website that I listed there and read through them because they have their definitions. But as you're thinking about answering the interview questions I'm about to go through and lay out for you, I want you to think about those. I'll reference them in the answers here because there's actually ways you can weave them into your answers to demonstrate to the people interviewing you at Uber that you are a good cultural fit. Now, the last thing I want you to do in preparation for your interview before we go into the interview questions and answers here is I want you to go to this site. Now, this site actually is a little bit more about us from Uber. You're gonna find a letter from their CEO. I advise you to read through that just to get his perspective on where they're going. But they also talk about sustainability and safety. There are a few other issues on that page as well, but do yourself a favor. In order to prepare adequately, in addition to watching this video, go to that website and read through that as well. Now let's get to what you came here for. So these are actual Uber interview questions and answers. We're gonna go through them one by one. I'm gonna tell you what they are, why they ask them, and how to answer them. Now, the first one is tell me about yourself. This is a pretty classic icebreaker interview question. In a lot of job interviews, you will get this question. The way I like to answer it, and I have 12 years experience in recruiting, so I know a little bit about this, is I like to say, okay, great, where would you like me to start? Now, why do I say that? I say, where do you like me to start? Because what that does is it prompts them to direct you, right? Because some people, when they ask that, they want to know about you, your upbringing, your personality, your interest, all those things. And other people, they want you to say, Ben, tell me about where you went to school and your proficiencies and experience. And you don't know who that person is, not when they ask you that question. So by asking them, okay, great, where do you want me to start? It allows them to direct you. If they go, oh, just, jump in, tell me about you. What I would personally do is I always err on the side of professionalism. If they want you to talk a little bit more about you and your background, they will certainly do that. But here's what I do. The best way to answer this question, if you're talking just purely through the professional lens, is start off with a little bit of passion. Like say, for example, you're an engineer. Like, well, growing up, I always liked building things. So I came really interested in becoming an engineer. So I went and I got my BSME from this university. From there, I had this internship, and then walk through your resume quickly. What you want to do is start with a foundation of passion, briefly touch on your education, and then walk them through your resume quickly and efficiently, hitting on the highlights. This should take you no longer than 90 seconds. Remember, you're not here to do a biography. This isn't, you're not gonna talk through your entire life story, but quickly and efficiently lay the foundation of passion, education, each one of your job stops in less than 90 seconds, move through it, and if they want you to elaborate, they will prompt you to do so. Now, the next question is a common one. When I profiled Apple, they asked this, Tesla asked this, Microsoft asked this, Netflix asks it, and it's why do you want to work for Uber? They all want to know why you want to work there, and the best way to answer this interview question is using the 50-50 rule. Now, the 50-50 rule states that the first 50% of your answer should be about the company. What about the company inspires you? Maybe it's about how innovative they are. Maybe it's about how they have a sustainability desire. Maybe it's about how they plan by 2040 to have 100% electric vehicle, zero emission fleet, and that's inspiring to you. So something first about the company. The second 50% of your answer needs to be about the role you are applying for. So if you're applying for a product manager role, it needs to be something in that job description. If it's software engineering, it needs to be something in that job description. So remember, first 50%, something about Uber. Now, you can find a ton on their values page. So those new cultural norms, I guarantee you, if you read through those, you can cherry pick something out of there to be the first part of your answer, and then something about the job you were interviewing for needs to be the second part, how you're passionate about that. That type of work motivates you. This next one's interesting. It's what are the most important skills and qualities to work at Uber? And if you have gone through their new cultural norms, it is very easy to cherry pick a few of these out. So for example, they say, they highlight perseverance. They highlight ideas over hierarchy. And they also highlight customer obsessed. Any one of those would be really good. But I think, perseverance is a good one here. And let them know, I think one of the things that I think is a really important quality to work at Uber is perseverance, knowing that you have to continue to work hard to solve hard problems. Reading your new cultural norms page, I went through and I read about just kind of the things you value, and I totally agree with perseverance. I think it's an incredibly important quality because none of what we are doing is going to be easy, but it is worth it. So you have to persevere through difficulties whenever you're doing your job on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's one of the most important qualities one could have to work at Uber. Something like that, but pick something that resonates with you, resonates with them, there is alignment, and use that as the important skill or quality to work at Uber. The next question is a common one. This is kind of a research verification question. So companies ask us to make sure you prepared and you're actually interested, and it's tell me, what do you know about Uber? This is really easy. You can give a little bit of a rundown of their history that you can find on their website. I really like going to the websites I highlighted above and talking about their future plans, how they plan on being a completely zero emission company by 2040 and their commitment to being green. That's a good way to answer this. But I would find something that is relevant to the role you're applying for. So give a quick 10,000 foot view of the company, no more than 20 to 30 seconds, maybe about where they're headed, maybe about how your role fits into that, and that should be more than sufficient. All right, we're about 4 or 5 questions in, and they finally get to the first behavioral interview question. And that question is, tell me about a time you resolved an issue with a team member. Whenever you get behavioral interview question, which is a question that starts with, tell me about a time when, or give me an example of a time when, they're basically asking you to recall something you did, you want to use the STAR method. The STAR method is situation, task, action, result. Right? So tell me about a time you resolved something with a team member. Just remember, their cultural norms are we celebrate differences and we do the right thing. So they're going to value someone who handles conflict in a positive, beneficial way. So start with the situation. What was the situation you were in where there was conflict? What was the task that maybe you two disagreed on, or the situation that you encountered? What was the action you specifically took? So in this case, to bridge the gap, to find understanding and find the win-win for the two of you. And the result, what was the outcome of you going through this conflict and resolving it? Make sure when you tell this, it puts you in the light of somebody who really values their team members, values productive dialogue. And ultimately, there has to be a resolution where everybody's happy. If you can do those things, you're gonna nail this interview question. So quick tea break here. The next question is a combo question. I don't see this a lot, but it's kind of cool. I say cool because I'm a recruiting nerd. What are your strengths and weaknesses? So these are 2 different questions put in one, but it allows you to be brief. If someone asks you what your greatest weakness is, you've got to elaborate. You've got to put some time into that. If they ask you what's your greatest strength, you've got to do that too. But the fact that they're giving you 2 here allows you to be a little bit quicker with both. So for the strength has to be something in the job description or something that would make you effective in the role you're applying for. If you're applying for a mechanical engineering individual contributor role and you say, well, my greatest strength is my ability to lead people, and there is no leadership in the role, you are missing the boat. It has to be something job related. Now, in terms of weakness, weakness should be something authentic, okay? So nobody wants your fake weakness. You have to give them something real, but it also has to be something that doesn't make you a bad fit for the role, right? Like if you're in procurement or you're in finance, you can't say, I have addiction to white collar crime and I like skimming the books. Like you can't say that, right? It can't make you, it's gotta be authentic, can't make you a terrible fit for the role, and it's gotta be something you're working on resolving. So maybe a good example is you wanna be a better public speaker. So you're working on that. You're actively seeking out opportunities to speak more. Maybe you're taking a Skillshare course on putting together a presentation. Maybe you're in your local, the speaking club. I forget the name of it, but that is how you answer it, right? Something authentic, doesn't disqualify you for the role, and you show that you are actively working on making that weakness less of a weakness and potentially even a strength. Another good example is maybe you are a perfectionist and you know that your attention to detail at times doesn't allow you to move as quickly as you need through a series of tasks. So what you've done is you've made sure that you've sent out appropriate time to complete your task, and you have to remind yourself at the beginning that sometimes good enough is good enough. You will still want to turn in a high quality, but you want to move quickly and efficiently enough so that your ability to really turn in a high quality product doesn't keep you from completing multiple tasks. The next question is an interesting one. It's how should you prioritize your work? I think it's important to highlight knowing your deadlines, right? Knowing the priority of things and then having a plan. Those are really important. And if something can't be done, right? Like you have an objective, you're not going to meet it in time, make sure that you are showing proactive communication. So I think it's really important just to say, for me, I've experienced, giving an example really helps here. I've experienced roles where I had multiple competing deadlines, and it was really important to me to kind of, one, identify the highest priorities and make sure I was getting those first, creating a plan, time blocking, and then communicating if I was ever going to be a little bit late for one of these deadlines. If you can do that, you're going to effectively answer this question. This next question is an oldie but a goodie. It is a classic, and it's why should we hire you to work at Uber? Whenever someone asks you this question, they're actually asking you, why should we hire somebody? Why should we hire you instead of somebody else, right? Because why should we hire you? There are always going to be alternatives for Uber. There's lots of applicants. So what you want to do here is you want to highlight your alignment with the role, your alignment with the culture, and then if there's something that differentiates you that most people who are applying for this role won't have, highlight that, right? So you want to say, so one, I always tell people whenever you're applying for a role, you want to make sure you do a job experience alignment misalignment exercise. You print out or you pull up the job description and your resume. On the job description, we want 5 years experience, coding in C++. You're like, okay, good, I've got 6 years. I'm a fit here. But you go through one by one and you really identify where you're in alignment and where you're in a misalignment, and allows you to speak to this. Be like, from a qualification experience, perspective, I meet all the major qualifications here. I've got this many years experience doing this. I got my degree here. I've worked in this industry for 5 years, progressively growing. Additionally, I feel like I'm a really great match for the culture. Reading through everything in your cultural norms page, it really spoke to me, especially the we do the right thing. I'm really passionate about being able to work for a company that puts doing the right thing first and foremost. That would be really inspiring to me. Finally, one of the things I think I bring to the table that other people don't is blank. And if you can do those things, you will adequately answer why should we hire you to work at Uber. The next question is, tell me about a problem you had to solve at a previous role. So again, tell me about a time. By now, you should know that means STAR method: situation, task, action, result. When you're doing this, make sure it's an actual problem, not like a small thing, but like a significant problem, and make sure there's an actual solution. That's one of the things people do wrong when they answer this question, is they don't go through and take you through problem, action, resolution. You need to make sure you're covering all of those bases, and make sure they don't have to ask, right? If they have to go, wait, what do you mean by this? Or how did this get resolved? Give them enough detail without it taking 5 minutes, right? You wanted this to be 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Give them enough detail so they go, okay, I follow. I get everything that happened here. I don't need to ask for clarification. Additionally, don't assume they know the different acronyms, right? Like you're talking to a recruiter, you're talking to HR. Don't just say a bunch of the acronyms so they don't follow you. Explain things to somebody who doesn't have the technical competency you have, unless of course it's a hiring manager or a peer, so that they follow and they understand your example. If you can do that, you'll answer this question. The next question is a tricky one, and it's what didn't you like about your last job? This is what I call a negative prompt. Everybody knows that you don't want to be negative in interviews. It doesn't benefit you to be negative whenever you are interviewing. You understand that, I understand that, we both understand that, but they're prompting you to do that by saying, what didn't you like? So the best way to answer this question is to talk about what you wish your job had more of. Ideally, that is something this new job does have, right? So let's say in this new job, let's just say you're in quality engineering. I say quality engineering a lot, I love quality engineering, but let's just say in your current job, you don't get to do any supplier quality engineering, and you've actually done that before and you like it. And in the new role, there is a ton of supplier quality work. So you could say, the main reason why, and I don't know if it's something I didn't like, but I really wished I had more supplier quality interaction. I really like doing that type of work. And in my most recent job, I didn't have a lot of that, and as time went on, I had less of it, which is part of the reason I'm really interested in your role, because your role, that seems to be a fundamental component of the day-to-day for this person, and I'd really love to be doing more of that. If you can do that, you're gonna answer this question great. Resist the urge to talk badly about your boss, your coworkers, the culture, the team, anything. Don't talk bad. Just talk about what you wish you had more of, and you're going to answer this question great. The next question is a common one, and there's really only one way to get this right. There's a lot of ways to get it wrong, but there's only one way to get it right, and it's describe a time you received constructive feedback from someone. How did you respond? The only way to answer this is you need to give them an example of a time where you were really open to feedback. Maybe it was your boss or a coworker, and they took you aside and they shared something with you. So you said, I'll go through it. So I was, it was my most recent job. My manager came and he gave me feedback about a presentation I gave to the client. And his feedback was, I moved too quickly through some of the key points that separates our value from our competitors. And I really appreciated that, because in looking back on my presentation, I was a bit nervous and I did have a tendency to go through, but him seeing it lets me know that yes, it's not only something I'm aware of, but it's something that other people seeing. This allows me to kind of focus in on it and get it better. So in subsequent presentations, I made sure to take my time and breathe in and just slowly speak. And it was something I reminded myself in the middle, at the beginning, during, and at the end of my presentation to slowly go through. So I really appreciated that, and I think that I'm a better speaker for it. But what I did there was I gave them an example of a time I received legitimate criticism or feedback. I accepted it, I was thankful for it, and I used that information to become better. If you do that, you answer this interview question. Easy. The last question is a good one, and people get this one wrong all the time because of a really small reason. And it's tell me about a time you went above and beyond what was required. People do a few things to get this wrong. One of the things they do is they tell you about a time they just did their job. When I did the Target interview guide, they asked this question. And in my research, what I found was that a lot of people, when they do this, they tell you about the time they did something that was really good, but it's part of their job. So first, identify something that is outside of your typical job scope. It's got to be something significant, and then share with the outcome. So tell me about a time when. So STAR method: situation, task, action, result, and make sure it's outside. So here's your job, something outside of your job scope in which there was a significant effort that paid off. If you can do that, you will answer this question well. The mistake people make is they give an example of something that is your job. It's like me as a recruiter, and like, Ben, tell me about a time you did something outside of your job scope. And I go, well, there was this really hard job I had to recruit for. I end up calling and talking to a lot of people. I found a referral from somebody and I brought him in and they hired him and it was awesome. And they're like, great, that's your job. You didn't do anything above and beyond your job. So whenever you do that, make sure that it's outside of your job scope. Now, the last question here, the last one we have, is Uber actually says, that's the end of your Uber interview. Do you have any questions for the panel? So if you're in a panel interview, they're going to ask you if you have any questions. If you've ever watched any one of my videos before, you know how passionate I am about this. You need to have questions. Questions signify interest and research and commitment. If you're going to be making a big life decision, like switching jobs, well, wow, you really ought to have questions. Remember, questions aren't just for you, and they are for you because you need to be pulling in information, but it's also for them to demonstrate interest in the role, enthusiasm, and a desire to learn more about it. So make sure you bring 5 to 10 questions to the interview. If you haven't watched my video that I made on questions, I made a video called 27 Great Questions to Ask in Your Interview. Go find that video. There's 27 of them. Pick 10 you like and ask that in your interview. There you go. That's the video. That's everything. If you watch this whole video and you practice, maybe watch this video a couple times to make sure you are ready before your interview, you will absolutely crush it. If you found value and you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the video, hit that like button, and feel free to comment below. Thank you for watching. Good luck in your interview. You got this.